Alrighty, guys, welcome to another episode of Podward State, post-THON edition. We'll have a tiny little segment that's non-THON, but mostly this will be about THON and our guests' reflections on it. But anyway, enough with the introduction. I'm your host, Matt Paolizzi, joined by, as always, my loyal co-host, Sam Brungo. Sam, how's it going, brother?
It's going fantastic, Pao. You know, we had a great weekend watching Penn State student volunteers, raise over $10.6 million for kids with pediatric cancer. And, it was just really cool to see. We're going to dive into that with some special guests. We have our managing editor come on who has, he was there for almost the whole time covering. We have our social media manager. We have 46 Live host of the weekend, Dana Nunemacher, who also works for Onward State, and we have last year's wellness captain who led the line dance this year. She was very involved with the entertainment committee at THON this year, Juliet Garrigan, one of my close friends, and awesome conversations all around the board. Joining us today, we have a guest host filling in. We have Jordan Mansberger. Jordan, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great, man. First time here, pod debut, got the backwards hat on, really excited to get going here. I had the privilege over the weekend, Saturday morning, to cover THON for Onward State as well. One of my best and most favorite experiences so far at Penn State. And yeah, just really excited to dive in, guys.
Without further ado, let's jump into talking about Penn State's dance marathon. Here to talk about THON, we have our managing editor, Matt DeSanto, and our social media manager, Brian Parsons. Guys, how's it going?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Doing great. Got the backwards hat on. Not my usual look, but I mean, that's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Hey, when you come on Podward State, you got to throw on the backwards hat. That's how it goes. So we're just going to start out. We'll start with Matt first, then come to Ryan. But, everyone kind of has a different relationship with Penn State's dance marathon here. But what is your personal connection with THON, and how did your experience with THON start?
That's a really good question. I didn't grow up as a Penn Stater. I applied to Penn State as a junior in college and went from there. But when I was in the 7th grade, my little brother was diagnosed with cancer, and he's totally fine now. He battled it for a year. And I know that he's never really talked in depth about it, but I always know that he thought THON was cool. He thought that the mission was cool and what they do, the celebration of fighting cancer. And I think subconsciously that's part of what led me to Penn State in the end. It's a really cool event every year. It's cool to see so many, I think 16,500 volunteers come together every single year to put on really just a really fun event that raises, this year, $10.6 million to benefit pediatric cancer research, especially in a year that fundraising was only digital, everybody was locked inside, and yet they were still able to put up 8 figures. That's really cool.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with Matt growing up. Not really a Penn State family or anything, but I'd always see the people canning in my neighborhood because I'm from Philadelphia. People canning on the street and all those things. And in high school, like mini THONs were going on around me, so I'd go to those too. But I never really had a full grasp on THON. So I joined an org freshman year, and just my first experience at THON was just awesome. Like, just blows you out of the water. Like staying for the final floor and everything. It's like such an emotional experience, and it just fills you with, I guess, like Penn State pride. And then when I joined Onward State my sophomore year, I just got a totally different look at it from press row, which was equally as fun, equally as emotional, but just a different perspective. And the same thing this year, doing it virtually. Obviously, just like echoing what Matt said, an amazing feat that everyone was able to come together and hit double-digit millions in the raise money this year, even with everything being virtual.
Yeah, and I mean, both you guys kind of closed with sort of that overview of, it being virtual, right? Kind of incredibly different from how THON has ever been presented, right? This was kind of the first year I was not really involved with THON at all. For the past 3 years, my involvement with THON has always been covering it through OS. And that's always just been a, phenomenal experience. Sitting on press row is definitely an experience unlike anything else, in the wee hours of the morning, trying to get like a dancer feature or something together. It's definitely a very strange experience, but a very important bonding experience for us as well, too. And it was kind of, tough for me to miss out on that this year, but, just I'm super busy with teaching and everything. So I was kind of like grading papers while seeing you guys do all your awesome coverage, which was awesome to see. So again, as someone here who kind of had very limited experience with the virtual THON this year, what was that spectacle like? How did they present it? What was sort of the overall vibe you guys got from it? Because I mean, I can even imagine you just kind of like sitting there watching THON. Like, did it feel like THON?
I think the weirdest thing is that it still did feel like fun. Even though we were just watching, at least on my computer, just a little minimized window of a live stream, there were still fun performances, events. There were a million stories to write. I think we published close to 120 on the weekend. Even though, the Bryce Jordan Center was empty for the most part, it still felt like a really fun weekend celebrating one cause. And I think that's really what THON is about, even though it was online this year. And you mentioned that big press row vibe about bonding and hanging out. I think we still had that. We had to get a little more creative, but we used a Discord server so we could voice chat with each other the whole time. We don't need to waste time typing. And, in the wee hours of the morning, we're laughing because someone muttered something funny under their breath or stayed unmuted. And we're just having so much fun joking around, but still contributing such good coverage. It was a really fun weekend.
Yeah, going into the weekend, like, no one knew what to expect. Like, THON sent us like the spectator guide and all that stuff, but like, no one knew what it was going to look like. And I mean, the live stream had some of its own hiccups, but I think I walked downtown at some point and like, you just got the feeling that everyone was having their own THON experience from their apartment or from their dorm, but just we weren't all together in the Bryce Jordan Center. You kind of just got that feel through social media and through like some of the dancer features that we saw that like THON was still going on. Like I think a good quote from the weekend was like, THON is not one building. THON is like an idea, a feeling. I think that still permeated the virtual format, which was just a really cool thing to experience. Obviously, you miss getting up and doing the lion dance and jamming out to the surprise performers and everything. But I mean, I think everyone across the board made the most out of the virtual experience, and just all things considered was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with especially what you said, Matt, where this being my first experience covering THON with Onward State, I had the graveyard shift from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. Saturday morning. And really, I just thought you guys did a terrific job. I mean, it was so much fun. I mean, the Discord, I really didn't think that I would get like didn't really think that I would get that great of an experience, like getting to meet you guys, especially because like we've only ever met virtually, me with all of you in here. So yeah, it was definitely great there. And then just taking a look then at the coverage, what was some of the biggest stories of the weekend that you guys, I guess like biggest takeaways, most interaction, like what was the biggest story that you guys saw this weekend?
Some of the coolest stories that we had this weekend, I was really happy that we were able to still get to talk to dancers and feature them. THON PR was really, really helpful about getting us in contact with them well before THON and also during. We talked to a dancer who was tuning in from 3,700 miles away in the Netherlands, or a pair of dancers who were best friends in kindergarten and still are to this day, or a pair of twin sisters who were dancing, or someone doing it from their dorm room. We really got to talk to a lot of different people because every dancer has their own experience. And I was so pleased that we were still able to tell those stories, even though we weren't able to go talk to them on the Bryce Jordan Center floor. I think that was my biggest positive on the weekend. I was really thrilled with that.
Yeah, I guess just to echo what Matt said, not to pick on the live stream or anything, I think they did an incredible job. But like, you didn't really get to see the dancers, which is often like a really fun part of THON. So I think being able to see all those different people dancing from different places, doing different things, everyone just making the most of the virtual format was really cool. Like we saw people sitting in line waiting for chicken baskets in the middle of the night. Like those quirky THON things still went on, but just in a different format than usual.
Yeah, no grilled cheeses, sadly, this year. That was always my lifeblood, man. Like 3 a.m., Jordan, you're talking about like a graveyard shift. I just run out from press row and just got to grab a grilled cheese and tomato soup. That was always my pick-me-up. Always. I think I wrote like a little story because I was just like completely delirious from sleep. And I was like, I love grilled cheese. And I just wrote like this whole little ode to like grilled cheeses. So definitely a highlight of my THON experience. Just dumb little stories you'll write with all that. So I guess kind of building off now, let's talk about it as sort of like a pure like viewer experience, right? How was it just sort of like just watching it, right? Was it entertaining? Like what were some sort of highlights that you saw from that, right? Like big moments that occurred, that you think really got everybody up and excited and everything, or just things that kept you going that you really appreciated? Just general, sections or, segments that you really enjoyed.
This is kind of typical, but like the band performances, like whenever you're feeling low and like the band comes up and the first song you play, like by heart, like it'll get you back in the THON mood, I guess. Through the night, the stream was off, but they had some interviews running, which were obviously repeated a lot, but I mean, they were all interesting, giving features on people involved in THON. Also, obviously, Family Hour, which is like almost like the climax of THON, the most emotional part of it, still carried that same weight over the virtual format. I mean, I know I was sitting here in my room crying, and a lot of other people said the same thing. So like that emotional moment, I thought was one of the highlights as well. They did a really good job sharing those stories, talking to those families, and yeah, just getting everyone in the THON spirit, even if it's not in a little bit of a more emotional sense.
Yeah, I think Ryan's really right there. I thought my biggest takeaway from the live stream was that even though, there were definitely some down periods, the big moments still felt like big moments. It was still cool when they did the first line dance, or when dancers sat, or they revealed the total, or stuff like Family Hour or guest performances. Those still felt like big moments, and they still happened at the same time like they normally would. So it still felt like a normal THON schedule almost. By the end of Saturday night, you were ready for the pep rally, like you've been gearing up toward it all day, stuff like that. The viewer experience was interesting. I think not having a blaringly loud stadium behind you at all times almost gave you more of a chance to like decompress and like process everything that's happening, because every time you're at THON, it's just sensory overload for 46 hours straight. So being able to step away from the screen, get something to eat, drink, just take a moment to yourself was almost really refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously THON was very different this year, but I think that the main goals and the main just thought of THON really came through. One thing that was, to me, mind-blowing was just, we're in this pandemic year. It's really just a lot going on. THON raised $10,600,000. That is mind-blowing to me. It's crazy. I personally didn't think that they would get past, like, break into the 10 millions, just based on things that are going on in the year. And I just think that's absolutely incredible. So for you guys, how did they do it? Like, was this surprise to you as much as it was to me? Like
just to comment on that, I know one of our writers, Mackenzie Colin, had a post go up today about THON kind of just being like, we're approaching now like a year of being basically locked down, and it's just like relentless, like all the days blend together. And she said that THON is just like a beacon of hope right now. The fact that they were able to raise that much money, and as vaccines start coming out and case numbers start going down, like it's just like there's a light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. And how they actually raise that much money, I mean, I think it definitely varied from org between each org. We wrote a post featuring some that were like doing things like posting on Instagram, like, oh, if you Venmo me $10, I'll like eat a chicken wing for like they were doing like challenges and stuff, and just thinking outside of the box, and making up for that deficit, which was, I didn't think they were going to hit the 10 million mark either. Not that I doubt Penn Staters or anything. It was just like, you assume, oh, this year it's just like the energy is not there, the same support isn't there, but everyone went above and beyond to even hit over that mark, was just an incredible feat.
I think it's really like a testament to the THON community's drive to put on this event every year. I mean, they had unimaginable challenges and still managed to raise, like you said, 10.6 million. That was the 5th straight year that they've hit 8 figures. Like when they phased out canning a few years back, they had a bunch of years in a row where they were only getting, 8 million, 9 million. They still beat that all this year, despite all the challenges that they had going on. I think that's an incredible, like I said, just a testament to how passionate that community is. It was really cool. And like Ryan said, and Mackenzie wrote, it just felt like the first good thing to happen in forever. It was really nice enjoying a weekend for the first time in a while. It was good.
If you had to pick one moment from this year's THON that really sort of blew you away and you're still thinking about, what would it be? Barring some of the normally big moments, like barring, I guess, the pep rally, and, the family hour, which are always sort of the biggest, most emotional points of THON. Besides those, are there any other moments that really like stuck with you?
It's not serious, but I loved when they brought Super Turno on stage at the pep rally. That was such a fun moment. She's just so passionate and lively. Everyone loves her. Like, no one's ever said a bad thing about Super Turno. And she finished her speech with a joke about going bar hopping. That was so funny. I think that was one of our top performing tweets of the weekend.
This year they announced the surprise performers ahead of time. So like the surprise performances weren't really surprises, but like that was like oh my God, Sue is here. This is hilarious. And then she gave like actually a really like heartwarming speech to everyone about like what being a Penn Stater means, which I thought was really cool. Besides that, if I had to pick something else, the band OK Otter, I don't know, I really love them. That wasn't like a spectacular moment or anything, but I thought they did a really good job in their 2 performances.
Hey, thank you guys so much for coming on and chatting a little bit about THON. Just again, you guys did a fantastic job. Me and Peo weren't really as involved, but we definitely were following along on Twitter. You guys had great round-the-clock tweets and just keeping everything very detailed and updated, and I was proud to be part of this Onward State family. So props to you guys. Matt, you're going to be hanging out for a little bit, talking about volleyball. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and chatting.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate the kind words. You were there in our hearts, even though you weren't there with us.
Alrighty, guys. Matt, you're not done with us yet, Mr. Managing Editor. You are still sticking around for one last little segment, and that is women's volleyball. It's been one of the sports we haven't talked about it yet on the pod this year, but we definitely want to talk about it because, hey guys, if you haven't been to a women's volleyball game yet at Penn State, sadly, this isn't an option right now, but at some point in the future, try to get to a women's volleyball game, man. The atmosphere in Rec Hall, Matt, I think you'd agree, is just always wild, during normal times.
Yeah, absolutely. The energy is really fun. That's a very intimate arena. Definitely.
Yeah. So again, volleyball has started out. They were supposed to start out the season January 22nd with the series against Michigan, but that was postponed. So they instead started out their season earlier this month in the 5th of February, starting out with a home series against Illinois, which they ended up winning. So starting out the season 2-0. But since then, they've had some struggles, dropped 2 games against Minnesota in that series, dropped the game against Ohio State, kind of rebounded a bit with 2 wins against Indiana last weekend during THON. So I guess real quick, sort of at this start of the season, right? Penn State is 4-3. How well do you think they're sitting right now? Like, is there any cause for concern with this team?
I wouldn't say I'm concerned, only because right at the gate, they were down 6 players over the first weekend. 6 players didn't dress. Not incredibly clear why, but I would guess that it's something health related. Now that we've gotten those guys back, the team is slowly building up to full strength. Obviously, the players who missed some time need to get worked back into the rotation a little bit and gear up. But the second series of the season was against the number 5 team in the country. That's a really tough challenge for a shorthanded team coming right out of the gate. And I think moving forward, we have a series coming up against Maryland, a game against Ohio State, Purdue, Rutgers. Those are all very winnable series for Penn State. And I think it could definitely get back on the winning track. I think this could be a 10-5 team in a few weeks.
Definitely no secret that Matt is the biggest Penn State women's volleyball fan. If you just follow his Twitter, that becomes very, very apparent. I wanted to touch on players that you think can really help get this team going. One player, she's already been doing it all year long, Joni Parker. She has 126.5 points right now on the season. For context, the next highest scorer is Caitlin Horde with 89.5 points. What do you think that maybe she can do? Is there more that Parker can do, or do you think that it just needs to be more depth throughout this roster to really get this team back trending in the right direction?
It's hard for me to imagine Johnny doing any more, only because she consistently puts up, I think she's averaging 3.5 kills per set. Those are incredible numbers. I think, other players in the rotation will need to step up their game, but I think she's a strong enough leader that she could make that happen even next weekend. She's got 13 aces on the season so far. She's hitting 240. That's a very respectable percentage. Hard for me to imagine her doing anything more at the moment, but I think she definitely could. She's an incredible high caliber player.
Yeah, definitely. And they'll need her to keep going here as they play Maryland next week. And Matt, I have a stat for you that I really want to get your live reaction for. Do you by any chance know the exact number of digs that the Penn State defense has this year?
I can't say that I do.
409.
409. That's an incredible number. Thanks, Joe. Wow. Well, now I don't want them to get any more digs. I want to keep that intact.
Well, someone who might want to have him get more digs throughout the rest of the season is another Penn State coaching legend, right along with Joe Paterno, and that is Russ Rose. Not only a Penn State volleyball legend, but really arguably probably the greatest head coach in NCAA women's volleyball head coaching history. I mean, all-time leader in wins with 1,299 as of this Wikipedia article that I've used as my source. Coaching there since 1979. So obviously this is not Russ Rose's first rodeo. And I think you know better than anyone, just his personality and everything. So what has Coach Rose done sort of during this strange season that even he has never experienced before with COVID and everything? How has he sort of talked about it? How has he sort of dealt with his team? And what sort of vibe have you picked up from him during this time?
Russ has always been a very almost timid, reserved coach, at least when he's talking to the media. But I know that no matter what obstacles are thrown his way, he's still going to put the best team he can out there and compete every single set. He's always talking about how the players are dealing with a lot of challenges. There's a lot of new protocols, but they're still practicing hard. They're still playing hard, and they still ask the same things from the team. And I think it's important. I think even though the challenges are mounting, Penn State can't afford to lower its standard. I mean, it's got a really high standard for itself. 7 national championships in program history. That's a pretty high bar to set. But I know that he's a good enough leader, clearly, to get them to the next level as soon as he can.
Yeah, so Matt, sort of to wrap it up now. So now we kind of have a sense of where this team is at, still trying to find its footing, but, you know, there's plenty of reasons to be optimistic with this team. Who are some players that have really stepped up over the past few games in terms of both playing and leadership that you think have really made a huge impact on this team and might continue to make a huge impact going forward into the season?
Good question. Well, right off the bat, if I think of impact player for Penn State right now, I'm thinking Annie-Kate Fitzpatrick. She's a true freshman, outside hitter, and she is tearing it up so far. She has 69 kills on the season. That's second most on the team. She led the team in kills in her first 2 matches, her first 2 starts. I mean, she's come out just red hot. And Russ Rose has talked consistently that she still has so much to learn. He always points out that she's undersized, and that's always something that she'll need to deal with in her career. But I think she's an athletic and passionate enough athlete to get to that next level. I mean, quickly. I mean, she's only a true freshman. She's got a lot of time to iron those kinks out. I'd also throw Jenna Hampton out there. She's Penn State's starting libero right now, ever since Kendall White graduated last year. And she was one of the 6 who missed that first series with Illinois. But now that she stepped back into the role, she's a real leader in the backcourt. It's been really fun seeing her get that opportunity that she hasn't quite had because obviously Kendall was there. Last name that I would throw out is Anastasia Kudryashova. She's a transfer from Rutgers. This is her first season with Penn State. And over the last few games, she's really just heated up. I mean, she's got 68 kills on the season. That's right behind AC. I think one thing that Penn State really struggled with last season was that it didn't have any just knockout hitters. Like Caitlin Horde and Serena Gray are great in the middle, but they didn't have anyone on the ends who could really just pin balls and hit them to the hardwood. And I think getting Annie-Kate Fitzpatrick and Anastasia going early is going to really help out this team down the stretch if they can find success so early in the season.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks, Matt, for joining us. As we already mentioned, Penn State women's volleyball team, they'll be taking on Maryland next week, so they'll definitely need all those players to keep on stepping up if they want to keep on this current trend and keep this winning streak going.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was real fun.
Now we're moving in to chatting a little bit more about THON with Onward State writer and worked this THON as 46 Live, which was the streaming service that it worked through, the host producer. So it was big time, famous celebrity at THON this year. Everyone saw her at home. If they were tuned into the live stream, Dana Nunemacher. Dana, how's it going?
I'm good. Thank you so much for all those kind words. You're really hyping me up.
First off, let's just start out with your early connection to THON, how you kind of found out about it. I know you're from a Penn State family, grew up very connected with Penn State. So just talk a little bit about your first experience with THON and how that has grown over the years to what you've been doing now.
Yeah, so I was just talking about it this weekend. My friends and I were talking about canning. And I guess my earliest memory was being at a Dunkin' Donuts one day. And there were these students out here, and they were holding these cans. And I'm like, Mom, why are these students out here just holding these coffee cans? What is this? And she told me it was THON. And then she kind of explained to me a little bit more that Penn State, every year they raise money to help, fund the Penn State Children's Hospital and make sure all of the bills are covered for any child that is there kind of battling childhood cancer. And I didn't really think about that again. Obviously, I mean, it like kind of stuck with me, but I didn't really come to light again until probably when I was in 7th grade. I became a really big Penn State fan that year and was following Onward State and just everything they did. Like, I was definitely Onward State's #1 fangirl for years. And I saw that they were starting to post this thing called THON, and I kind of remembered it. And I just started following along during the weekend, and I learned about the line dance. I learned about Final Four. I was just learning all these amazing things that happen over these 46 hours and beyond throughout the year. And I just knew that one day I had to be a part of it.
Awesome. Yeah. And after all that, you did end up at Penn State, and you did end up helping out with THON. So kind of came full circle with that, which was cool to see. So sort of, we'll get to your experience manning 46 live this previous weekend at THON in a bit. But first, I kind of want to get a picture of like your previous THON career and your experiences actually being with THON prior to this year. I know that, last year you're on press row with all of us with Onward State. Always a great bonding experience, for years. That's kind of where you sort of make relationships with different people, because you're all in the same, the same tough environment, especially if you're in those graveyard shifts early in the morning or very late at night. So sort of along with your Onward State experience last year, what has your other experiences with THON been like over the past few years?
Yeah, so I had just joined my sorority at the time, Gamma Sigma Sigma, and I stood with them for a couple of hours Friday night, and I really had a lot of fun. I think that was a great way for me to kind of start getting to know the other girls that were in my sorority. But then I spent most of my weekend with Onward State, of course, and I also was a host for 46 Live last year, which kind of helped me build up to becoming the host producer this year. I got to host the Final Four last year, which I was so excited about. I got to be on the floor. It was a really special memory for my freshman year.
Awesome. And then, of course, this year, what was sort of like the overall vibe that you had over the weekend manning 46 Live? Like, was it super taxing and difficult? I'm assuming it was. How was sort of the preparation like going into it?
I'll be very honest. I was really stressed the whole weekend, and then I kept trying to tell myself, this isn't about you. This is about doing this for the kids and making sure we're reaching them, since they can't be with us this year, that we're just reaching them and their parents and our dancers as well. So I was trying to kind of keep that positive, hopeful vibe going, but there were some really stressful times of just getting my hosts on air and making sure, they said what they needed to, but also working with THON. And sometimes the schedule got a little bit too ahead, and sometimes it got, we were running behind. So just dealing with things getting cut here and there. Overall, I'm really proud of how this weekend turned out, but there were, of course, hiccups along the way, as you would expect.
The entirety of THON weekend, we always there's always so much going on, right? There's always somebody on stage, there's always stuff happening around the concourse, always stuff happening in the bleachers and the stands. And it was kind of similar, to in a certain respect, as much as it could be with virtual THON this year. So while helping man 46 Live, what were some big highlights and memorable experiences that you had?
Definitely when Katie Solomon was on stage and we were counting down to when dancers would stand up. I took a video of it, and you could hear, like, as we were getting closer to dancers stand up, I started tearing up because I just thought to myself that despite everything that we have seen this year, we're still here and we're still going to be dancing for the kids, no matter if we're in the Bryce Jordan Center or not. That was a really special moment to me, and it just kind of gave me that hope that I needed to get through the weekend. Seeing the line dance for the first time, I am a simp for the line dance. I couldn't wait to see what this year would bring. I was not disappointed. And just kind of every time I got to see one of my hosts go on air for the first time, that was always really exciting for me to see. My hosts, most of them are older than me, but I would still kind of have that proud mom moment that they worked so hard these past few months and now they get to show it off. I was so happy for them.
Yeah, and on the flip side of one of your highlights, you said, I know one of my biggest highlights of the weekend was whenever they said dancers sit down, because it just felt like such a big moment that everything has come to fruition. And it was just a really powerful moment for me. How would you reflect on your experience as a 46 Live host this year? Would you do you plan on doing it again? You know, hopefully not in this sort of format through virtual THON. Hopefully this is the last virtual THON we ever have to have. But yeah, would you do it again?
You know, that was the golden question this weekend. I won't lie. I had a lot of people asking me if I would be back next year. Maybe, but I do have the goal in my next year that I do want to dance. There's this book that I had to write for my English class, I think when I was in 8th grade. And the last chapter of this book is your goals in the future. And I still remember this day that I wrote, I want to dance in THON one day. So I'd really like to see that dream come true next year. If not, I would still really love to be involved with 46 Live, probably as the host producer again. I just really appreciated those connections I was able to make with those hosts and being able to tell that story of THON this year in such a special way.
So now sort of, you spent that whole year basically planning for THON, all these different variables changing throughout the year. Then finally the weekend came and now it's over. It was success, raising all that money, even in spite of that pandemic. Sort of looking back now that it's over, do you have any sort of final thoughts or reflections? What did you leave THON with? What feelings did you leave THON with?
Penn State never fails to amaze me. There's never been a time that I've been here that I've been like, oh, Penn State's the worst. I've never felt that before. And that's just because I know all the amazing, beautiful things that we here as students are, what we are capable of. And just being able to see that come to light this weekend, it was really special to see. Especially I was there in person during the reveal, and just the excitement that was going through the Bryce Jordan Center at that time. I don't want to say it was equally to what we experienced on a THON weekend, but that energy was still there.
Dana, you did a fantastic job this weekend, and we look forward to potentially you dancing next year. So thank you for coming on and talking a little bit about THON. We look forward to having you back on the pod. Joining us now is someone who worked on Dancer Wellness in 2020, leading arguably the best line dance to date. She served as the DJ coordinator on the entertainment committee for THON 2021. She's a local legend, one of my best friends, Juliet Garrigan. Juliet, how's it going?
Hi guys, it's good. Great to be here. Happy to see Sam. Haven't seen him in a while, so ready to just chat about my experiences.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So what exactly was your role this year in this kind of wonky, different THON than we've seen ever before? And what was the experience like with THON being virtual and being in the empty BJC during that time?
Yeah, so my role, I was picked back in the spring of 2020. So in, I believe it was March, April, around that time. So at that time, obviously we had no clue what we were going into. We didn't even know what THON weekend was gonna look like. Hopes were high that we would get to have it in person, or even some in-person elements, but we just kind of started preparing as best we could, going along the guidelines of what they did last year and in previous years. But then obviously August came, completely virtual, we find out. And from there, we just hit a stopping point. We just had no clue where to go, where to begin, what to do. And obviously the entertainment committee mostly runs the stage and the live elements of this weekend. So we were very, very affected when it came to that virtual announcements. So from there, we started to slowly piece together what we knew we had for THON weekend, I guess is the best way of explaining it. So we pieced together that it was probably going to be a live stream. Events were going to look similar or as similar as they could. So staples, the line dance, moppings, kids teen talent show and fashion show, stuff like that. We wanted to make them still feel like they were in person, or hopefully have them in person. And then as we went on and on and on, and COVID just got worse and worse. Like more things were kind of taken away or dropped, or we had to just modify things to be even more virtual than we thought it was going to have to be. So my job, along with, I have a direct co-captain who splits the position with me. He's my other DJ coordinator, Jeremy Dunstan. We basically just met with I would say almost every committee. So captains from almost every committee, there's 16 of them, and just talk to them about how to still have the feeling of their events and the original purpose and intent of them, but bring them to a live or a virtual aspect, I guess. So we started those conversations back in November, maybe even December, I would say. It was pretty late. From there, we worked with our head of timeline, Max Dadswell, and our director, Emily Scott, placed things on a timeline as best we could. And from there, my job was collecting videos, making sure they all played, understanding events that did happen live. So there were a couple live events that happened that we needed to know the show flow of them. We needed to understand how they worked. Like Pep Rally was a big one that was live. Kids Fashion Show was live. So we needed to make sure that adding in the hybrid and the live, we had a smooth transition. And then came our conversation where we teamed up with 46 Live, and they were absolutely fantastic. I can't even say thank you enough to them for the work that they did for us this weekend. So yeah, a lot of behind the scenes work. And then during the actual weekend, obviously an empty BJC, staring at the cardboard cutouts, but it felt so similar. Just like the feeling of THON. I know everyone talks about it and it's like THON isn't a building, it's a feeling. It couldn't be more true. And I almost felt guilty that I got to be in the BJC and still get a little bit of normalcy. But from what I understand, people outside of BJC still had that feeling of home and love and THON. So yeah, it was crazy. Definitely not what I expected when I took this position back in March, but could not be more thankful for how it ended up.
You and I both growing up in State College have kind of this, although we have different experiences with THON, we both have this exposure to it that not a lot of people get growing up. So going backwards, what was your relationship with THON, and how did you become connected with it, and what was your experience like at the end of this with leading line dance and kind of being that person that we use you texted me the other day, we use you for our featured image on almost every THON related post, just because you're the fit, like obviously it's for the kids, but like you were that face of THON last year.
Yeah, from State College. I think sometimes people give us more credit for thinking that we actually know what THON is. Like, you really don't know. Even if you are from State College, I knew what it was. I knew what it was for. I went to elementary school with a Four Diamonds child, so I very early knew what it was. But it's such a bubble. Like State College is so removed. Like the actual residents of State College are so removed from the students, especially when you're just in high school. So my older sister, who's actually 4 years older than me, was super involved in THON through Penn State Fitness, so much so that she even danced in 2016. So that was my first time, I believe, going to THON was in 2016. I got to go and see her on the floor and dance, and that was really cool. Again, just had no clue what actually was behind the scenes of it all. And then obviously I started college in that fall 2016. So knew that my sister danced, knew that was a huge accomplishment, and it's something that people take a lot of pride in. And then I have an older brother who also was involved through club soccer, so got to watch him kind of do that. And I didn't do anything my freshman year for it. I was a little nervous to join anything. Also just had no clue, literally no clue what it was and what committees were and the behind the scenes orgs, stuff like that. So sophomore year, went out on a limb, wrote an application super quick for dancer relations, to be a dancer relations committee member, got it, and spent 2 years there, then was a captain for dancer relations, and now an entertainment captain this year. So in my 5th year, going into to be the dancer wellness captain, lead the line dance is a huge honor. Like I can't even express how much it helped me grow. It sounds so corny when I say it too, because it sounds so cliche, but it's like you really do get to watch thousands of people just come together like over stupid silly little dance moves or songs, or like even I saw Sam during the weekend. I think you came in on Saturday and you said that the people at Onward would get up and do it every time. Like I came up there and everyone had their favorite parts and they would scream the let's get hype, let's go part. So it just like so reminded me how amazing it can be when you bring people together. And it's nothing that I was really doing. I mean, I was just the voice of it all. It takes those special people to feel the sense of community, to want to scream as loud as they can, to want to do the silly dance move. So yes, being the person in the front is a huge thing, but it takes a certain special personality to understand that it's not about the person in the front. It's about bringing everyone together. And then transitioning to this year, like the girl who did my position this year, just the perfect person to do it because she brought everyone together even more so. And I reached out to a lot of past dancer wellnesses and I had them write her a letter just about what it means, because obviously the crowd aspect is so fun, but it's not about that. It's about bringing the energy to people's dorms, people's homes, people's living rooms. And she did an amazing job this year. So wonderful. And then so from my position with dancer wellness, leading the line dance, getting to see that sense of community and thousands of people coming together, like I just had this moment, especially during my last line dance in 2020, where I was just like, entertainment, music, dance, it just brings people together in a way that we can't even explain sometimes. It gives you chills when you hear people singing their favorite song in unison, when you hear, the "We Are" chant, stuff like that. So I knew that the entertainment committee was somewhere where I wanted to be. It's way more behind the scenes than I was with dancer wellness. So just completely different experiences, but I feel like even more so, I had the power to bring thousands of people together still, but this time it was through the live stream element of, oh, I'm watching this in my living room and I know that down the road other people are too, and I was the person that got to be clicking those buttons and queuing up those videos, and that was super rewarding, just in a way different kind of a experience, I guess is what you could say. But yeah, you get used to seeing the pictures too. Like I get my parents send them to me all the time, and like my co-captains now this year, they're a bit younger, so they were like freshmen last year, sophomores now, and anytime there's one of me, they'll send it my way, and I'm like, so cute. But I don't know, you just get used to seeing them sometimes. So
Yeah, I know I recognized you from somewhere. Yeah, definitely with all the featured images. Yeah, so despite all the modifications this year, despite the pandemic, so despite it being virtual, you were able to help raise over $10.6 million for the kids this year. Just, can you say a little bit more about how that happened and what that number means for THON this year?
that number is incredible. And I know there are some other news outlets that are maybe making it seem like that's not anything, but I know. But just, again, it makes you speechless. Like especially in such a year when so many people were struggling, and I've never seen so many people willing to give their time, their efforts, their support, their money. And like, that's what the 10.6 is. Aside from a number, aside from a monetary value, that is support, that is love. And like, that is what Penn State does best. And the fact that we could do it in the middle of some people's hardest years just shows that like limitless, like THON is limitless, the THON community is limitless, and the love and support that we truly do have for this organization is absolutely limitless. My co-captain said that as one of his words that he would describe this year as, like, it's just shown that give us a barrier, give us something to put in front of us, and we're going to run right through it. And that's a cool feeling that I hope everyone in the THON community feels, even if you're an org member, a dancer, a captain, just a volunteer. Like, I hope that everyone feels connected to that sort of feeling. And yeah, so that number is absolutely amazing. And I couldn't believe it. Behind the scenes, what was going on when that number was raised, I was very, very stressed because obviously we were doing the show cues. So we wanted to make it perfect and get it exactly timed. But once I had time to kind of step back and reflect on it, just tears. So proud to be a part of it.
So sort of after all that work that went into THON this year, especially, with all the variables, all these different things being thrown all over the place, all these changes, you guys were able to get it together last weekend and really put this thing out that you could be proud of, not just for all the work you guys put into it, but obviously for the kids and the families as well, to make them proud and know that they're loved and cared for. So after all that work, now that THON weekend is over, all that build up, and now, you can finally rest a tiny bit. What are you leaving THON with? What are you thinking about now that it's over? These sort of reflections.
Yeah, this is a great question and something I'm super actually eager to talk about. So all committees will probably have a debrief meeting. It happens every year after even a normal THON. I believe the entertainment committee is having ours on Monday. We'll see. And in my mind right now, the feedback that we got on this live stream was just almost too good to be true. So many parts of THON are so streamlined in a normal year that it almost seems mundane a little bit, and especially for the viewer at home, which is a lot of people, as we know. And as we found out this year, a lot of people will tune in if you make it super engaging and you make it look different than just a live shot of the stage. While that is fun and while it's nice to cater to those fans in the stadium or the arena, there's tons of people at home who want to show their support as well. So from where I hope to leave this organization, or if I've left anything, I hope to talk to my successors, as we call them, so the people that will come under me, to hopefully bring this live stream aspect to life even more. I hope that it's not thrown out. I think that this was a growing year, this was a learning year, and we were forced to do it because of the circumstances. But I hope that doesn't get left behind in the dust just because everyone wants to go back to normal. Because I know there's many, many people who would absolutely enjoy watching a live stream, watching 46 hours of content, not just watching a stage shot. Some of the feedback that we got from the FR director was just like, families have never felt more showcased. And I couldn't agree more. Like every video that I queued up or every video that I saw was so centered around families this year. And that's amazing because even in a normal year, you have that big crowd and families who are at the BJC, their kid doesn't want to go up on stage because it's scary, but they'll dance in their living room in a tutu, and then they get to see themselves on the live stream, on the big screen. And that's what it all matters to me, like bringing it back to showcasing who we do it for and the support and love that we can show. So I am very, very much so focused on still utilizing this live stream because I did not think that we could do it. There was moments when I was like, there's no way this is getting done. There's no way we're going to pull this off. And then now looking back, we did it and it's absolutely feasible. It's absolutely amazing. And hopefully we went down in history and we're going to write a book, our finals, and we're going to tell our successors about it. And that's all we can hope for, is that in years to come, they will utilize the changes that we had to make this year to make THON even bigger and better for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, we keep mentioning, we've had 3 other people on to talk about THON tonight. We keep mentioning how different it was, but how it had the same feel. So that goes fully to credit of people like you, the volunteers that were there doing the live stream, the people that were there helping the dancers, and the people that were raising the money. So credit to them. Juliet, I'm so proud of you and everything you've done with THON. I know that I say that as a friend of yours, but to look at what you've done is really cool over the years. So appreciate you coming on, chatting with us. Hopefully you do something great next year and we'll have you back.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me and letting me talk your ears off. But hopefully.
Thanks a bunch, Juliet. Alrighty, guys. That was your episode of Podward State for this week. Definitely a great episode. I think we got a lot of insight into, the inner workings of THON and what it was like from both sort of a press outlook, the outlook of someone who was, really influential in the running of the live stream this year. And finally, another big wig in THON this year, the person who led the line dance this year, right? So a couple of really, important players into making what THON is, or what THON was this weekend. And, what THON was it? It was a success, I'd say.
Yeah, THON was awesome this year. It was great to have those conversations, get those personal anecdotes from all those people. Obviously, we had a little segment in there, also the volleyball segment, that just talking about that, since we had Matt and Jordan on here, who's a sports guy. So, it was just really cool. If you guys are interested, you can go to thon.org, and there's recap videos about all of the big moments from THON, virtual THON this year. And also you can go to thon.org/donate if you are still interested in donating. You can donate all year round. It's a really cool organization. Jordan, how was hanging out with us? Did you have a good time? Is it your first time on pod?
Yeah, I had a great time. I had a great first time on pod here with you guys. Just really reflecting on THON was fun. Over $10.6 million raised. Just an incredible number in what's been such an interesting and challenging year for so many. Then, of course, I get to talk some volleyball with our great managing editor, Matt DeSanto. Get to throw out the 409 stat that I've been holding on to for a while. And, yeah, it's just been a great time.
There you go, guys. It's been another episode of Podward State. My name is Samuel Brungo.
I'm Matt Paolizzi.
I'm Jordan Mansberger, signing off.
Hey, stay safe, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. We'll be at you on Friday with another episode about St. Patty's Day with Anthropology 140 professor Kirk French.